Greetings, mighty companions, and
Hello, friends and family.
welcome back to Transforming Relationships Through A Course in Miracles, the Tuesday edition.
All right.
The Tuesday edition, yeah.
Tuesday, part two from Sunday,
Exactly.
where we found ourselves in a very, very exciting part of A Course in Miracles because it comes out, the author just comes right out and tells us where we're at, calls us out.
And tells us like, when you're on a journey, it's really nice to know what's going on and what's coming ahead, and also want you to know that you're doing great, and
Yep.
also, this is what lets you know that you're on the path and that you're still on the path. So often when we're on a goal, going somewhere, doing something, we wonder, am I getting anywhere? Am I on track? Am I off track? I'm not even sure if I'm actually on the track. And you get confused. And so, A Course in Miracles, because A Course in Miracles is a path, it is, in this section, it's like, here's what the path is like, here's what the journey is like, here's what happens on the journey. Not to some people, but this is what happens as you're going on the journey, on the path toward truth, toward light, toward healing. These are some of the things that you will encounter and you will experience. And here's what to remember so that you can keep the faith and keep on going. So the section that we are on is let me see here. Wonder why it's not working. Okay, the section that we're on in the annotated and also the blue covered edition.
Two different titles.
Yes.
But the same chapter and section.
Exactly, but it's chapter 18, section 3.
Yeah.
And in the original dictation, the title of this section is The Advance to Truth. The Advance to Truth. So it's like, so that's the first thing. So we'll just do a recap of the first 3 paragraphs, which we did last Tuesday. So you'll find in the Facebook feed or YouTube, it will say The Advance to Truth Part 1. That was last Tuesday, and this is The Advance to Truth Part 2. And it's in the title here. So we did 3 paragraphs last Tuesday, and we'll pick up on paragraph 4 tonight.
Beautiful.
But first we'll do a little recap. And so in the recap, it kind of describes our past before we got on this path, and before we chose this path, the path of light, the path of truth, the path of innocence. Says that we walked the way of dreams. That's what we were doing before we chose this path. We were walking the way of dreams. And what that means is, before A Course in Miracles, we spent our lives trying to make our fantasies true. And we kept trying to bring the truth, our innocence, to what we learned in the past. Guilt, shame, sin, separation. And it made for, what was it said? We walked the way of dreams, which means we were walking the way of illusions, the not truth. And then it says, and every time we thought we saw a light in the dream, something that gave us hope, it just took us deeper into darkness and deeper into disappointment, because there is no happiness outside of ourselves. And so if you're walking the way of dreams where you're like, oh, just over there, or once I get that, or once that happens, or once I get that relationship, or once I get away from that relationship, I'll be happy. That's the way of dreams. And everything that seems to bring a hope in the dream for happiness, when you're still looking outside of yourself, just leads to a deeper and deeper sleep. And that's the way that's the path we were walking. Okay, before we chose this path. And then it talks about something very interesting that is very useful for all Course in Miracles students, and I'm sure that if you've been on this path for a while, you've experienced it. And it talks about that on this path where you're walking toward the truth, toward the light of understanding, that as the light comes nearer, as you get nearer to the truth, as you get nearer to understanding and light, here's what's gonna happen. You will rush to darkness, fear. You will shrink from the truth sometimes, and sometimes you will retreat to stark terror and to the lesser forms of fear. Okay? That's gonna happen. Not a maybe, not a if, not for some of you, but not for others. It says you will, and the word will is underlined. And we talked in depth about that in our last Tuesday class in part 1. We talked in depth about that experience of like making your way toward the truth, and then the next thing you know, you are like rushing headlong away from that truth into the lesser forms of fear, jealousy, competitiveness, judgment, and then sometimes to just stark terror. Okay. I was just talking to a friend today who's been on the path a long time, and they were saying, yep, I rushed away from truth over what I realize now is nothing, a judgment that I made, and I rushed away from truth. And yes, this person was saying, I had been experiencing more love, more truth, more joining, more support, more family, more Course in Miracles, Mighty Companion support than in a long time. And then I promptly thought I perceived something that wasn't true, and then I rushed back into anger, grievances, hate, self-hate. And I said to them, yeah, that's what we do. That's what we all do on this path. And it's so helpful to have A Course in Miracles go, that's what we do. That's what we do as we're moving toward the truth. There are times when we will rush back into the illusions.
Yeah, isn't it nice that we've been taught that heaven or God comes to us looking for how to punish us. But yet heaven, love, God has come to us basically making an invitation, saying, it started out at the beginning saying, when I was looking through this afternoon, I really felt like Spirit was saying, look at these words that the author was bringing to us from heaven. Mm-hmm. These are love's words that came to us.
Yes, indeed.
These aren't just some random words that fell out of the heavens, and bounced off of a few rocks and landed in a book for us. These are actually words that were sent as an invitation from heaven. Mm-hmm. And the very first sentence shows us that. It says, and it shows us who the invitation is from, or to rather. You who have spent your lives in bringing in what I was hearing today reading this and what we were talking about last week, in bringing, it says here, truth to illusions, but bringing joy to sadness. Mm-hmm. You who have spent your life bringing joy to sadness.
Mm-hmm. And love to fear.
Yes, and love to fear. Reality to fantasy, or you could say happiness to depression. You who have spent your life going from bringing happiness to depression.
And that's what we do.
If I can just get this relationship here, I'll be happy. But what I really didn't realize is it's just going to bring me to more deeper depression. And the Course author in heaven actually is coming to us not to beat us up, like we've been taught God is. How dare you? How dare you be trading your happiness, in for sorrow? What do you think you're doing? I didn't create you to be sorrowful.
I'm so disappointed in you.
I'm so
God.
mad at you.
I'm so disappointed in you.
In fact, because you're not fulfilling your function to be happy, I'm going to come and torture you now.
Yes.
Well, if love wants us to be happy and we're not fulfilling that function, how would it help to come to us and to give us more punishment? That's not going to help us to fulfill the function that God had for us. You know, the way God would do it is God would come and show us lovingly, hey, you who have spent your lives in bringing your function, the truth, happiness, to what isn't true, which is depression, you know, have walked the way of dreams. You've walked the way of the way it's not, the way it wasn't created to be. You're not walking the way reality is. You're in fictional land. You're in playland.
You're asleep.
You're asleep.
You're asleep. You're sleepwalking. Exactly. And it goes on to say, and the reason that we took all of what really was good and loving and innocent and brought it to guilt and shame and anger and grievances was because our goal was darkness.
Right.
That was our goal. In other words, you may not have been thinking, well, my goal is darkness, but
my goal is sorrow.
But it's obvious when we look at it that our goal was to be right and to get our way and to hold grievances. And so our goal was to, if your goal was to be right and to win and to hold grievances and to get justice, then your goal was not the advance to truth and to light. It really was darkness, but you just didn't realize it because you were walking the way of dreams. You were asleep, so you didn't know what you were doing. Okay, and then it says, and the closer that you come to the truth, to the light on this path, there will be times when you will freak out and run screaming from the truth, meaning from the loving folks, from the truth itself, from A Course in Miracles, from those who are happy that you're there. You will do that.
You'll run back to what your goal is.
Exactly. You'll run back to the familiar.
Right.
What you used to want, what you used to live your whole life in, grievances and anger and upset and betrayal and pain and suffering and vengeance. You'll feel nostalgic for hell. You will, and you'll rush back into hell, the hell of grievances and victimhood and you name it. He says, so you will do that. So when that happens, don't feel guilty. Don't feel alone, like you're the only one and everybody else is doing A Course in Miracles great, but not you, right? Or everybody's moving on the path to truth and light faster than you, right? Don't feel bad and don't fall for the lie that you're failing, or that you're failing while other people are advancing faster than you are on the path to truth. He says, so it says, don't feel bad about your occasional retreat into the more familiar places of hell and grievance and anger in the past. Don't feel bad about that because you will is underlined, not maybe, but you will advance. Why? You will advance to understanding, to light, to peace, to joy, to happiness. You will advance because your goal is the advance from the past full of fear to the truth. Okay? And you know this. You know that your goal is light and love and understanding instead of pain and suffering. How do we know that you know this? Because if somebody asked you, hey, what would you rather have? A life full of grievances and sorrow and pain and anger and lack and sickness, or a life of appreciation and gratitude and abundance and fun and creativity? Which one would you like? Anybody would say, I would like number 2. So you know that you want that. Okay. And so it says, so here's what you do. So when you're on the path to truth, like you are on, when you are afraid, and when you are afraid, not if, when you are afraid, then just know that you have stepped back. You're like, I'm going to go back to my familiar, comfortable, nostalgic past when I was in hell. Okay? just know that you have stepped back. Okay, I've stepped back. That's why I'm afraid. I'm trying to rush away from the truth and back to my old past of pain. That's what's going on. But all I have to do is join with spirit or join with another in an instant of light, which is an instant of truth, an instant of forgiveness, and that will be enough to remind you that your goal is the advance to truth and light, not back to the past when you thought you were right but you were miserable. Okay? So that's something to remember. That's a formula for what to do when you're on this path, and the next thing you know, you're experiencing fear. I've stepped back. I'm afraid. I've become afraid of the truth and afraid of love and happiness. But I'm going to just take one moment here, and I'm going to join with spirit. I'm going to join with another in an instant of remembering the truth that my goal is forgiveness. My goal is love. I'm just going to take a moment to remember my goal is love. My goal is light and happiness. And then that will be enough. That will be enough to what? To have you continue to keep advancing toward the truth, which is the advancement toward happiness. Okay, so that was paragraph 2, and then do you want to do a recap of paragraph 3?
Yeah, and interestingly, today in your class, this is the sentence that we threw out.
Yeah,
if you knew who walks beside you on the way, which you have chosen,
this path,
you that are coming to these classes and us, we have chosen this path.
Yes.
And here we're being told once again by the author who's been down this road.
Been down this path.
And knows, if I only knew when I chose this path, and what's the path? Well, the path is up to these first 2 paragraphs was telling us that we had a goal, and our goal was is to be unhappy. And how are we going to accomplish that? Our function's to be happy, but because we think we deserve punishment, that becomes our goal, is to be unhappy. You always, when somebody gets punished, they're unhappy.
Yeah.
And if our function is happy, just think of the word you're unhooking from your function. Unhappiness, depression, sorrow, and the likes are what our independent goal is. And again, as we always say over and over and over, if we don't know what the problem is, that we have an addiction to punish ourselves independently, unconnected to the whole, we make a goal to punish ourselves. And we don't believe that. We're
unconsciously.
Like, well, we don't believe that's really happening. Because none of us think that we would ask for punishment.
Right.
None of us think that we would ask to be broke, poor, sad, depressed, sorrowful, hurt, bitter, angry, fearful, or any of those attributes. But yet the course author is trying to tell us, wake up. And the way you start to wake up is to realize that is your goal.
It was your goal.
It was your goal. And here at the end of paragraph 2 is the clue that we keep hearing in all of these readings. We heard it this afternoon in your class. We heard it the last time we did class, and we're hearing it again. When you're afraid, you have stepped back. Let us, and that's the clue of the whole message, let us. You can't do it by yourself, because if you try to do this by yourself, you're going to try a course of punishment.
To go back to your old goal, you know, of being right and getting your way.
And if we knew who walked beside us in paragraph 3, the one that walks beside us has not lost sight of the goal, which is happiness.
Exactly.
That's our function. That's our function that we're supposed to be fulfilling by our Creator, but we have forgotten what our function is. But the one that walks beside us has not forgot our function. And if we knew who walked beside us, no matter how much we get off track, and we knew that who walks beside us knows that our function, they do not get off track, they don't lose a beat. They know that our function is to be happy. If we knew that, fear would be impossible. But what we do is we forget that we're not in this alone. We're in this together with heaven. Heaven's here walking right next to us going, you don't deserve punishment. You deserve abundance.
You deserve to be happy.
You deserve to
no
have
matter what
joy.
happened. No matter what happened.
You deserve to be free.
Yeah.
You
exactly.
deserve to be abundant.
No
you deserve to be just like a joyful, happy, just joyous life. That's the best way to say it is a joyous life. And the one that walks next to us has not, will not, never will forget that for us.
Yeah.
And if we really knew that, fear wouldn't be impossible, because then I would know that, oh, I can't screw up, because thankfully I'm not in this alone. That's where fear comes in, is when I forget that I'm in this with
a higher love,
a higher
power.
love. Fear comes when I think, oh, I'm by myself. I'm broke. Oh, I'm by myself.
I'm on my own.
I'm on my own. You know, when you know you're not alone in this, whatever this is, boy, howdy.
No fear.
There's no fear. And when you realize that it's not just Holy Spirit, it's not just this ascended master that's gone before you, but this is God, Creator, is standing with you, because it's Creator's will that we be happy. That's what stands next to us, is Creator's will.
Absolutely.
And we'll never forget that. We'll never change. That's why Creator never changes, because Creator's will for us has never, nor will ever, for eternity change. I'm certainly glad about that God's will for me hasn't changed from being happy.
Yep, exactly.
Even when my will changes for that, and I believe that I deserve different, and so I constantly set up these sabotages in front of me, and I'm so brilliant to make them look like wonderful doorways to go through.
And then completely forget about that you set that up for yourself.
Yeah, and have no idea that there's a second personality at work here with a different agenda, because it believes that I deserve punishment, which is the equalness of unhappy.
Yes.
Every time I punish myself. And I go deeper and deeper into punishing myself more and more and more, as it talks about earlier, that it looks like a light. In other words, it looks like happiness is before us, but we lead ourselves into just deeper and deeper darkness, or deeper and deeper punishment, or deeper and deeper unhappiness, which would be depression.
Right.
So how about if you pick
okay,
back
and
up?
it says,
I did one sentence.
Yeah, that's great.
For a recap.
I like that. And it says like I said, if you knew who walked beside you on this path that you have chosen, not that you might choose, that you might choose, this path that you have chosen, if you knew who walked beside you on this path that you have chosen, fear would be impossible. And the reason, then it says the reason why we don't know who walks beside us on this path. Why is it? The reason we don't know who walks beside us on this path is because he says that the journey into darkness has been long and cruel, and we went deep into it. In other words, I have been walking the path of grievances and anger and hate and unconscious punishment, and definitely conscious punishment of others. I have this journey that I've been on of hate and fear and grievances and judgment has been long. You know, I've been on it for a long time.
Not for eternity, but for a long time.
Exactly. And also that journey into darkness that I had been on before the course was also cruel, it was long, and I had gone deep into it. And that's why I don't realize who walks beside me on this path that I have chosen. And the little flicker of our eyelids, so long closed in sleep, has not yet been sufficient to give us total confidence in ourselves whom we had been so long despising. In other words, I spent at least most of this lifetime so far, and who knows how many other lifetimes, hating myself, despising myself. And so that's why in other words, on this path, my eyelids have just begun to flicker awake.
Right.
You know how in the morning you've been sleeping all night long, and the first thing that happens is your eyelids begin to flutter a little bit. That's the first thing that happens before you actually wake up.
It means you start starting to become awake.
Yes.
Is the starting to become joyful.
Exactly.
It's the starting to experience a life of being happy.
Exactly.
And that's flickering to be awake, but not yet ready.
Exactly.
Don't think, oh, you're ready to make your own decisions now, little Johnny.
Exactly. That's
Go
the
ahead,
point.
little Johnny.
That's the point. Is that we've so long hated ourselves that of course we don't yet have full confidence in ourselves, and of course we don't recognize who walks beside us. Our eyes aren't even fully open, so we can't even see what's going on around us. And it says, so at the beginning part of this journey toward truth, toward love, we're moving toward love, but we're literally going toward love, still hating love, because we're terribly afraid of love's judgment upon us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so that's the way, and that's the way it is on the beginning portion of the path to truth, the path to light. That's the beginning portion where you're on here and you're still like, oh, still hating yourself. Your eyes aren't even really open, so you don't see who walks beside you. But you're on the path and you're walking toward love, still terribly afraid of love. That's why periodically on the path toward truth, towards love, sometimes you retreat away from love and truth, because you are moving toward love still afraid, terribly afraid of love's judgment on you. Because before we got on this path, we believed that love judges us. I mean, look at the people who said they loved us. There's a lot of judgment. And so we still don't know yet what love really is, so we're moving toward love and truth, but still terribly afraid of its judgment upon us, because that's what we learned about love, right? And he says, and at the beginning portions of this path that we're on, we don't realize yet that we're not afraid of the love and the truth we're going toward. We don't realize we're only afraid of what we made of love and truth, which was judgmental and abandoning and hateful and
wants to punish us.
Exactly. And
God wants to punish us. I mean, love wants to punish us.
Yes.
I mean, love wants to judge us. I mean, God wants to torture us.
Exactly. It's like I was saying to my friend today, you know, on the path to truth, for a little while at the beginning, it feels like it feels like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. But if you don't know that that's normal on the path to truth, and if you don't know that that's okay,
you'll think you're doing it wrong.
You'll think you're doing it wrong, and then you'll step off the path, you know, to truth. And so it's really helpful to remember we all go toward the truth, still hating it and still terribly afraid of its judgment upon us. So don't be ashamed. Don't feel guilty when you're like, you know, you're like on the path to truth, and life is getting happier and lighter and more abundant and more friends, and life is just feeling better and you're loving yourself more. And then the next thing you know, you're like rushing back to your old ways, your old beliefs, your old habits, and your old grievances. You know, don't feel bad about that. Don't attack yourself. That's just the way it is on this particular path at the beginning phases of the path. And that's why the Course in Miracles says that the beginning of this path is the hardest. So just be grateful to yourself and love yourself for even being on this path, which you have chosen, because here you are studying it, and be patient with yourself be forgiving with yourself, be compassionate with yourself, and remember, when you are afraid, it's because you're starting to step back to your old goals, your old ways, your old beliefs, your old grievances. And that's all that's happening. You haven't gotten off the path, you're not a failure. And then what should you do? Just join in an instant of light with your higher self or another brother or sister, and that'll be plenty to give you confidence to keep on going. Oh, I'm still on the path. I didn't fall off the path. I didn't fail. I'm not lost. It's all good. It's all good. Just keep on going. Okay? So that's.
You haven't fallen off the path if it's not just you doing it.
Yeah.
And you're remembering to call on your higher loving self for direction. Should I be doing this? What do you think about this? If you think I should be doing this, show me the way.
Yeah.
So you're always involving your higher loving self. The reason it's called loving self is because it's choosing the loving way, not the punishment way, not the torturous way. The torturous way isn't when we come to God and we get judged and we get tortured. The torturous way is when we don't come to God. We've been taught, don't go to God. No.
God may judge you.
Yeah, God might torture you.
God has a long track record of judging God's children.
God might punish you.
Even
God's
the ones.
a God of righteous punishment.
Yeah, and especially for the people that God says He loves, So and that's what He's saying, that we haven't realized yet that we're not afraid of love, but we're only afraid of what we made of love.
And look at how our world is. That's how we have made love or God into a God of wrath, a God of torture, a God of punishment, a God of justice and judgment.
And also in our relationships. What do we learn? You only hate the ones you love.
Yeah.
And so we learned that you only hate those you love. And we learned that, God, who's supposed to be love, is also judgmental and incredibly vengeful if you don't obey, Now, that doesn't sound like love. Now, it makes perfect sense that we would be afraid of that. If we learned that love is vengeful and judgmental, if you don't obey it, well, of course you'd be afraid of love. And so don't feel bad that sometimes you get afraid of love. Of course you're going to be afraid of love sometimes. Of course, as you're moving toward love and you don't really know what love really is, and you learned all that stuff about love, of course sometimes as you're moving toward love, you're just going to rush back into the darkness, into the fear, and it doesn't mean you failed. And this is telling us exactly what to do to just, to keep on moving forward. All right. So that is the recap of the first 3 paragraphs of this section that we did.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, that we did last week. And that's pretty good, recap in 30 minutes. Of 3 paragraphs.
Oh, it has been 3. I'm thinking, wow, we only got 30 minutes, but I forgot we started 30 minutes late.
Yeah.
So I'm going, wow, we only got like 20 minutes, but we did start late.
Yeah, so we started.
So now we're early.
Yeah, so hey, isn't that great? I love it. Just a shift in perception and find out actually we're early.
All right.
Paragraph 4. You are advancing. Where? To what? You are advancing to love's meaning. Oh, that's where we're going. In the past, I didn't know the meaning of love, and that's why I walked the way of dreams and darkness, because I didn't know the meaning of love. I learned a wrong meaning of love, so I was afraid of love, so I wasn't moving toward love. I was always moving away from love because I was afraid of love, because I didn't know the real meaning of love. But on this path that you have chosen, you are advancing to love's meaning. And you're on this path, A Course in Miracles, you are advancing away from all the lies in which you have surrounded love. God, that's a whole nother. That'd be a whole nother class in itself. The lies in which we have surrounded love. Love hurts. Love demands sacrifice. Love can abandon you. Love can judge you. And on, oh, and don't forget, love dies. Says in this path, A Course in Miracles, we are advancing to the real meaning of love, and we're advancing away from all the lies that we have surrounded love in.
Now, you would think it'd be common sense if you were advancing to love.
Love's meaning.
Like when Anna and I were in our relationship, and we started going out and dating and falling in love, we were advancing to happiness.
So love's
we were
meaning.
advancing in our joy. And what we've been doing is the opposite. And that's why the title is so beautiful, The Advancement to Truth. You could say the advancement to love.
Exactly.
Truth is love.
Yes, exactly. And we don't know the real meaning of love. Okay? If you knew the real meaning of love, you'd not have any fear of love. But we have tons of fear of love. It's the same thing as our fear of A Course in Miracles. It's the same thing that comes up, you know, when we're studying A Course in Miracles. It's the same thing that comes up when you fall in love with somebody, whether it's a partner or a child or, you know, a friend. When you fall in love with someone, you know, we all have experienced this, the next thing that comes up is stark terror, just like it said, right? All of a sudden you're like, ah, oh my God. You retreat to stark terror, because if what we've learned about love is true and you're in love, then guess what you're heading toward? The biggest pain you ever had in your life. And if the love feels greater than anything that you've ever experienced before, then you better believe your fear is going to be greater than any fear that you've ever experienced before. And we've all experienced it. We all do it. You know, whenever you fall in love with someone, like we were saying, a mate, a child, a friend, or whatever, we've all had that experience where shortly after we've fallen in love and we're deliriously in love, what happens next? We sabotage, or they sabotage, somebody sabotages, you know, and then to the point where we're like, you know, I'm running away, you're running away, yeah, I'm running away, I'm glad you're running away, because if love is what we learned it was in the past, and you're experiencing love now, then you know you're setting yourself up for the biggest fall of all. And so don't be ashamed when there are days when you retreat back to stark terror. You know, don't be ashamed that, hey, I'm still afraid of love, and so I'm sorry that I did that. That was me sabotaging. I was sabotaging because I'm afraid of love, because I don't know the real meaning of love or truth.
When I read this first part, where the word illusions are in paragraph 4, I put in punishment. And I keep bringing this up only because as I was reading this afternoon, as we all do, the Course interprets these words on its own, has different synonyms, as you said.
Synonyms.
Or symbols.
Yes.
And it's almost like a code. And when you see the code, the different words, you realize illusion means this. Forgiveness means this. This means this. And then it's like a decoding way of breaking the parable down. Yeah. The ego can't understand the parable, but your higher loving self can. Your loving self can break it down because you've been studying, you've been listening, you've been learning. And so you are advancing to love's meaning here at the beginning of 4, and away from all punishment. You've been advancing to love's meaning, which is happiness. When you move toward love, your real love you're moving toward happiness. You're not moving toward fearful judgment and what could be
abandonment,
if the judgment
loss.
swings the wrong way, then it might not be happiness. So it's wavery. It's not steady. It's not certain. It's not sure. But here we're being retrained to know that love is sure. You can come to love and be happy. You don't need to come to love fearing, but
Punishment.
there could be punishment if the judgment is wrong. Maybe I misinterpreted how this is going.
Right.
And then find out God's actually ticked off at me.
Or the other person.
Or the other person being God's, offspring.
Right.
But you're advancing to happiness, to love's meaning, and away from what wouldn't be love's meaning or function is unhappiness, in which you have surrounded it.
Love.
Yeah, with your interpretation.
We've surrounded love with the belief in punishment.
And then when we retreat to the punishment, the doctrine and the belief of, well, I could be getting punished if I come to God, because I don't know what God's judgment's going to be. Only God knows the judgment. I don't know. And so when I retreat to this belief of possible punishment, then of course the fear increases, because it's back to that doctrine of wavery, of unsteady, of uncertainty, of not knowing. That's not love. Love knows.
Love is certain.
When I'm with Anna and I'm happy in love, I know I'm not like, I wonder if I really love her. I mean, I'm really happy. I'm like really joyful, but I'm just so uncertain if I'm love knows. Love isn't up for bid.
Happiness and love are one.
It isn't up for sale. It isn't up for question. Love just brings joy and happiness with it. And when we retreat to that old illusion, that doctrine of I deserve maybe some punishment. Maybe I haven't been living up to God's expectation of myself. I'm a poor dad. I'm a poor brother. I'm a poor son. I'm a poor whatever. And start looking for reasons why I would even deserve some punishment and talking myself into, the reasons why I would. I'm not looking for the reasons why I should be happy. I'm looking for the reasons why I should be punished. And that's how I'm retreating, is when I start looking for the reasons why I'm not living up to some standard that I think I should be living up to.
Exactly. And when you retreat to your old meaning for love, your fear increases.
Right.
So in the past, when we were walking the way of dreams, we had surrounded love in lies. We had given to love a meaning that love doesn't have, not real love. Yep. And so when we retreat to what we used to believe that love, the meaning of love was, our fear increases.
Right.
And so I used to believe, the meaning I used to give to love was that love demands sacrifice. And so when I retreat back to that old meaning, well, if I want to keep their love, I better sacrifice my happiness, because if you don't sacrifice your happiness, love will leave you. When you retreat to your old meaning of love, your fear increases, because there is little doubt that what you think love means is fearful, for sure. I mean, what are the main things we learn about love? Love hurts. Love demands sacrifice.
Well, love judges.
Love judges. Love can leave you. Love will abandon you if you don't obey it.
Love punishes you if your judgment was found lacking. For your own good, of course.
Right, of course. And so
if you think that's a possibility of coming to love, because that's what you've been taught God is, or love is, that, like you said, only love can hurt you. You only hurt the ones you love.
Only hurt the ones you love. That's what we all learned about love. Love demands sacrifice. and which means if you want love, you're gonna have to sacrifice. We all learn that, and so, but we all want love, and we're all like, I want love. But then when love comes, now we're freaking terrified because, oh crap, the greater the love I feel, that means the greater the sacrifice I'm gonna have to do.
The more I could get hurt.
The more I could lose, love can die, those are all these are the lies that we have surrounded love in. He says, you don't know the real meaning of love, and that's why you need to be on a path that leads you to the real meaning of love.
Right.
And why are we in hell? Because we don't know the real meaning of love. And he says, if you knew the real meaning of love, you could never be afraid. You could never be afraid of love if you knew the real meaning of love.
Think of it this way. Let's say we were raised up in all the churches.
And synagogues and
all
mosques.
the synagogues in the land.
And the mosques.
Everybody pretty much taught the same doctrine. And this is the doctrine. Just imagine what life would be like if the doctrine was that this is what happens, little Johnny and Susie. You die, and when you die, you leave your body, and then you go to God.
Hopefully.
And then little
if
Johnny
you've been good enough.
And Susie, everybody's going to go there, little Johnny and Susie. Everybody.
I see.
Because everybody will be loved by God. That's the story. If we were told that story.
Oh.
And they're like,
okay.
oh, we'll be loved by God.
If that was the story.
Well, what if we did something wrong? And then the teacher of the story looks at him and goes, did something wrong? What do you mean? You could never do anything not to have God receive you with complete love. What are you talking about, little Johnny and Susie? Do something wrong. No, that's the only way you can be received is through love, because it was the only way you were put out. You can only come back the way you were given.
Okay, so you're saying if that's what we learned,
then
what?
What would our life be? We wouldn't be afraid of love anymore.
Exactly.
We wouldn't be pushing each other away or situations away, or all the million other love things that come to us,
a million other ways
finding all the faults and things that are going to be wrong and how it's going to hurt us and abuse us and torture us and do it. And then when it happens, then we act surprised about it, even though, the universe gave us what we were asking for. Heaven was giving us what we were asking for by our own independentness of free will, because we weren't willing to stay joined. We detached ourselves from the whole with our own little idea of this rotten to the core theory of God equals punishment.
And that love
God equals fear. God equals condemnation.
And that love.
God equals wrath.
And that love equals sacrifice.
Yeah.
Same thing. To say God is fear is the same as to say that love demands sacrifice, or that love is fearful.
Now somebody would come to us and say, but it says here in my good book, and I believe it's a good book, if you interpret it goodly. It says here in my good book that God is the God of judgment. Well, then we take it upon ourselves to know, since we don't know what love is, to know what judgment is. And yes, God is the God of judgment if there need be judgment, but God has already rendered that judgment. And so we think we know what that interpretation means. That judgment could be, bad. Whoever said that judgment had to be bad? That the judgment, what if the judgment is you are innocent, whole, and complete,
and you deserve only love.
Deserve only love. You are abundant to the abundantness that you want to experience and receive, and you're lacking nothing other than what you hold back from your own self for your own personal reasons, I guess. And our teaching, our understanding of God is so backwards. So backwards. It's like
so
so
backwards.
ridiculous. Is our ego has set it up. Our belief system has set it up to keep us from God. Don't come to God. God might judge you. Best just to stay out of the courthouse. You know, just whisper from afar and hope that you don't really get involved with God. Because if you do, you don't know. You could have a little blemish on you that's not good, and you know, you get torched or something. You don't want to get around that, do you?
Exactly.
Just stay away. That's why people fear death, because it's the ultimate. Oh, I'm going to be there with love now, with God, with Creator. What does that mean? Well, 99.9% of us seem to have been taught that means you're going to be judged. It's time. You're going to know finally if what your final outcome is. When yet the final outcome was established from the very beginning. Hasn't changed. Other than, you know, our interpretation.
Which is nothing.
Which is nothing.
Yeah.
And has changed nothing.
Yeah. And so, so we used to walk the way of dreams because we did not know the meaning of love, and we surrounded love in a bunch of lies that has now made us afraid of love. But here we are now on a path toward the real meaning of love, and that's what A Course in Miracles is. It's a path that puts you on a path leading you to the real meaning of love. And we have no idea what love really means. We think we know what love means. You know, ask somebody, well, do you know what love means? Well, of course I know what love means, you know, and they'll give you a description from what they learned in the past.
Right.
But they don't know the meaning of love because they're not totally happy. You know, we think that love is something that happens because of bodies. That, well, when your body does such and such and another body likes your body and wants to be around your body, well, that we learned that love has something to do with bodies. You know, well, when the bodies are done, when somebody's body does something for you and they bring you flowers, so that means they love you. And when somebody takes their body away from your body and goes and be with another body, that means they don't love you. You know, and so we have surrounded love with lies, with illusions and conditions. You know, love has something to do with what people do. Love
or
has
look like.
Love has something to do
act.
with how bodies act or look like, or what people's bodies do, or what your body does. Like, if your body doesn't do da-da-da for their body, then they're going to interpret that as you don't love them, and then they'll go away, and then you'll lose love because their body's gone. We have no idea the real meaning of love. Love has nothing to do with bodies at all. At all. You know, whether somebody, you know, brings you flowers or somebody leaves your body and goes and be with somebody else's body. They don't have anything to do with love. Not at all. And notice how it says when you retreat to your past illusions of love, your fear increases. It says, because there is little doubt that what you think love means is fearful. But what is that to us who travel surely, which means very swiftly, away from fear, away from the old meaning of love? Okay, so who cares about what we learned about love and all the fear around that? It doesn't matter anymore because we're traveling swiftly away from the old illusions about what love means, and we're traveling swiftly toward the real meaning of love, in which our fear decreases. The closer you get to the real meaning of love, the faster your fear decreases. You know, so you know, use your fear as a gauge. Your fear is a gauge. Your fear is your gauge. Am I moving away from love's meaning? Am I retreating?
Or am I coming closer?
Or am I coming closer to the real meaning of love? Exactly. And that's what lets you know whether you're advancing to truth or retreating in fear from truth. That's what lets you know. Is your fear increasing or is your fear decreasing? That's all you got to know. How do I feel? Well, my fear is increasing. Oh, you must be retreating to the old meaning of love, in which somebody's failing. Um, oh, how are you feeling? I'm feeling like my fear is decreasing. I'm feeling more joyous. Oh, you must be advancing quickly and steadily toward the real meaning of love, right? And so we use our fear as a gauge. Are you advancing toward truth, or are you retreating from truth? That's all you got to know.
And we're advancing because we're not doing it alone.
Exactly. And because that's our goal. We want to be happy. We don't want to be miserable and angry anymore, even if we were justified. I don't want to be miserable and angry anymore, even if it made sense that I was. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be angry all the time anymore. Do you? I don't want to be sick and angry and justified in my anger and justified in the anger of a victim. I've been there, done that. It didn't make me happy, even though I thought it was so right and so justified. We are advancing. You will advance to the real meaning of love because you want to be happy. You don't want to be miserable anymore, even if you think you were justified in that. I don't care if I was justified in that. I don't want to feel that way anymore.
And that gauge that you're talking about, the more fear, the more I'm retreating, or the more peace, happiness, joy I'm feeling, that's my measuring stick that I'm coming closer to real love, true love, steady love. And remembering that we're not doing it alone, this repetitive message keeps coming up. And that gauge, the more we're going into fear, would be the same as to say the more we're doing it on our own. The more we're moving toward happiness is the more we're not doing it on our own. And as it gets ready to tell us here, you who hold each other's hand, would you hold my hand, baby?
You can hold my hand.
You who hold each other's hand also hold mine. So as we come together and join in this radical truth that love doesn't want to punish us, love doesn't want to judge us.
Love doesn't judge.
Love doesn't want to condemn us. Love wants us to come into love's embrace and
be free.
Join
and be
love.
Free.
And when you and I join in this belief, in this idea, in this curriculum, in this, as you say, belief, and we take each other's hand, not physically, but each other's hand in support, then we take heaven's hand. We take God's hand because we join God's will. God's will isn't that we come to God so that God can get some judgment time in. God desires that we come to God so we can get some love time and some happiness time and some, the joy of the Lord be your strength. Not, what's going to happen
the
here
fear of
when
God.
I walk through those doors and see God. Am I going to get slapped upside the jaw
we don't,
into purgatory for a little while?
We don't experience the joy of God. All we were taught was the fear of God.
Right.
Just like we were taught to fear love. Just like we surrounded love in a bunch of lies, we also surrounded God in a bunch of lies.
And we tend to forget that when we come together and join in this radical message, which is controversial to the mainstream belief systems of most of your spiritual teachings in the world.
Or religious teachings.
Not isolated to one or another, but this is a radical message. But the author wants us to know, when you take each other's support in this, you're taking my support with you. I'm with you in this. This is heaven's message. Deliver this message to my people, my children, 2 by 2, and tell them, hey, here's the good news. You know what? If I'm going out telling you some good news, the good news today is God is not
God,
out to
God
judge
is,
or punish
God is only love.
or wrath on you.
God is only love.
God is only love.
Only love.
We
Only
were
love.
we were given a bad interpretation of
Yes.
God, or of, you could say, of love.
Yes.
We thought we knew the meaning of love, of God, but we didn't realize God is, His ways are higher than our ways. God is unknown to us, but not that we couldn't know God. And to know God is to know that God is welcoming us. As we said at the beginning, you who have so long journeyed into illusion, bringing illusions to truth to illusion, bringing happiness to depression. You who have so long doing that, this is your invitation to read and to learn and to understand. It's an invitation. That's what love does. It's polite. It says, you who have journeyed this long, come and as soon as it went from that paragraph of you, then it started talking. That was all past tense. As soon as you join with this path, immediately heaven's already there, and now the old life is gone. The old way is gone. Even though you think, I keep running back to punishment, I keep running back to darkness. Even though we do that, it doesn't matter. What we're being told is, your way is set. Mm-hmm. You decided to go this way. Heaven immediately joined us, and then now walking with us. Mm-hmm. And what does it even say here? Something about travel. Are we on that part yet? I didn't.
Yes, it says, but what is that to us who travel surely very swiftly away from fear?
We are traveling.
You who hold each other's hand also hold mine, says Spirit. Because when you joined each other, like Greg says, in this idea that God is not fear but love, and then you when we joined each other's hands in this idea, we were not alone. And then the author of the Course says, do you believe that I would leave you in the darkness that you agreed to leave with me? And when we joined each other, we agreed with Spirit to leave the darkness with Spirit. Mm-hmm. And so Spirit's like, well, when y'all joined, you joined me, do you think I'm going to leave you alone in the darkness that you agreed to leave with me? No, because in your relationship, in our relationship where we joined each other's hand in the what? In the advance to truth. This path where we joined each other's hand in the advance to love's real meaning says in that kind of relationship is this world's light.
Or you could say in this world's happiness.
Exactly. So what is this world's happiness? What is this world's healing? It's when two or more people join hands in the advance to the real meaning of love, which is the complete opposite of everything we learned about love in the past when we were not happy. In the past, when we learned a bunch of lies about love, like love hurts and love demands sacrifice and love can die and things like that.
And love means you do what I tell you to.
Yes, love is...
That's what we think God is. You do what I tell you to.
Exactly.
And so I tell you, honey, you do what I tell you to. Because that's what love means. Look at God. That's how God does it, and God's love, and God says, you do what I tell you to.
I was just...
So, are you going to do what I tell you to?
Yeah, I was at somebody's house the other day, and they had on a very religious talk by a religious teacher. And this religious teacher was literally saying that biblically speaking, that to love God means to obey God, and that what God demands of God's chosen children is that they obey God. Yeah. And that's another illusion about love and God. Love does not demand or command or control. Love doesn't need anybody to obey. And so that's one of the old illusions that we have surrounded love and God in.
I, as a little child, sang songs you know, in my spiritual pathway that I would put on,
yes,
that went love and obey,
yeah,
for there's no other way.
yes, exactly. And then when we get in a love
We
relationship,
think it means obey.
obey, and it's like,
I'll obey you and you obey me.
exactly.
Even though it's not what I want to do,
Right.
but that's what you do, sacrifice and obey.
And in
Or
certain,
get punished.
and in a lot of those religious paths, the ones we came up in, the one who should obey more is the woman, you know. And so not only
Thank
is it
God for that.
not
We
only
had to have an edge on you
is
guys,
it obey,
because you're so good at getting us to obey, even though we don't think we're obeying. But just,
oh well, we
know.
have to do it subtly.
Yeah.
You know.
You just have to walk cute to the kitchen.
Right,
and all of a sudden,
exactly.
I'm doing all kinds of weird stuff. Taking the trash out, shoving in the driveway.
Oh, thank you so much. But you be willing to take the trash out.
Yeah.
But you know, so that's one of the main illusions that we have surrounded love in, and also God. Because what is God? God is love. You know, God, the love is not your body and my body and the bodies who do this and the bodies that. Love is defined by the author of love.
Right.
That's how love is defined. Love is defined by the author of love, and the author of love is God, and it don't have anything to do with the body at all, or obeying. But that's what we learned, that love, that to honor love, you must obey. And it says so in a holy relationship where we're like, hey, let's get on a path that teaches us the real meaning of love, you know, which is not what either you or I have learned about love in the past. Let's learn about the real meaning. God, the author of love, God's interpretation or God's meaning of love. Let's learn that together. And that means you don't know the real meaning of love. I don't know the real meaning of love. But let's join hands in learning what God, the author of love, has given as the real meaning of love.
And how do we join? It tells us how we join. Is we join those who have traveled surely and swiftly away from fear. You know, because we hear these terminologies and stuff and think, well, we're joining here because, you know, we're on Facebook and you showed up, and so, you know, and then sometimes we do it in person. So that's how we again have taught ourselves joining means. But to join is to agree in a thought and an idea.
That's right.
That's the only way. Bodies can't join. We could join all day long and accomplish nothing in an auditorium.
Yeah.
But in thought, we can join in an instant and change our lives and those around us.
Yeah. Exactly. Bridget can relate to what we were saying about, you know, what we all learned in our religious teachings about that God, to show love to God, you have to obey God. And then it trickled down into our relationships where the woman should obey the man, and that's what we learned. That's one of the illusions we learned about love. But love does not require obeying. Love doesn't control. Love doesn't command. Love doesn't demand. And all that really means is we have no idea what the real meaning of love is. But we are on a path where we are advancing toward the real meaning of love. And as we advance on this path to learning the real meaning of love, our fear decreases. Our life gets happier. What happens when our fear decreases? We become more joyous. We become more loving. We become more creative. We become more powerful. We become more generous. And, you know, and even though you and I have had our moments when our fear of love has surfaced and we have rushed away from love and sabotaged because you and I stayed on the path to learn the real meaning of love, our life has gotten happier and lighter and more fun and more loving and more abundant and more joyous.
Mm-hmm.
Even despite those moments that we did have where our fear of love scared the crap out of us and we retreated back to our old meanings of love.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you loved me, you would, blah, blah, blah. And so, I think that we can appreciate that we are advancing toward love's meaning.
And again, it's not because we're bodies.
No.
Our minds
Mm-hmm.
joined in this belief of love isn't punishment. Love isn't sacrifice.
Yes.
Love isn't something to be feared.
Yeah.
Love isn't something to be weary of.
Love doesn't control demand.
Or to be frightful about. Love doesn't have consequences if I come to it.
Yeah.
And so if you're sitting there going, well, I don't have a partner like you two, that I can join hands with. Just the fact that you're joining in this idea is you're joining. And when you do it, heaven is already there. And so heaven can't but help to join you because now you're where heaven is.
Exactly.
Which is the idea that love doesn't require the potential of punishment in the relationship.
Yeah.
Where it can change from being very happy one moment to it could be in the next moment very fearful and scary and frightful and unnerving. And you just never know, but that's love. And until that whole idea is abandoned out, and then we'll start processing. I believe what's happening with Anna and I, when we did join in our belief system, in our idea,
in our goal
together, of okay, I'm going to try this idea. It sounds pretty blasphemous. Oh, wow.
Or impossible.
Depending on your background
or
of
impossible.
uprising, or even impossible to see yourself as being able to come before Creator and not having the slightest worry in the world that you're going to have anything about, well, you could have done this a little better.
Or what about the fear that we have in our relationship? Yeah. If I don't do this right or I don't do that right, then you're going to get angry.
I said this wrong.
You said something wrong. I did something you didn't like.
Context. I didn't mean it that way.
And then you'll leave me or you'll attack me. So
worry.
Yes, about love.
About love.
And so but it says in this relationship where we've said we don't know what love is. When Greg and I were like, well, we don't know what love really means. Okay, we say we love each other, but we don't really actually know what love really means according to the author of love. Okay.
We know how to say it. I love you.
Yes, I love you. We say it a lot. It sounds wonderful.
Feels
great.
The emoji symbol.
But when Greg and I got together and the Course in Miracles, when we got together and we joined on the Course in Miracles path, and A Course in Miracles, the teacher of A Course in Miracles taught us to say, hey, I don't know the real meaning of love. I want to love you for real, but I don't really know
how to do that.
I don't know how to do that yet. But Greg and I joined hands and, well, let's learn together what God's meaning of love is. And let's go toward that, even though we have no idea what that is. When Greg and I did that, having no idea what we were really doing.
At first.
It
was what when we did that?
It was what?
Well, when we first joined, we first rushed back to darkness.
Yes, we did. Many times.
Just like the author said.
Just like it said.
That's what I love about this is the author.
We did it.
The author of A Course in Miracles literally has been through our experience.
And knows exactly.
And knows at this stage, this is what's going to happen.
Exactly.
And then you're going to sign up for this, idea that God's not mad at you, threatening, looking to...
Or that love is safe.
Yeah, throw some wrath on you somehow. and love is safe. I love that. That's a perfect analogy.
We're like,
They
okay,
were like,
let's see.
I don't know if it's safe.
I don't know if it's safe.
And so at first we sign up, and then what do? It is fearful to let go of fear. It's fearful to let go of fear because all the fear that I think has kept me safe in these relationships.
From love.
I'm having to give up and now trust my partner. Oh my gosh.
Trust love.
I'm going to trust that whatever she's doing, is working out for the better of the whole. No matter what ends up happening for everybody, but I'm following my peace, she's following her peace, and let her follow her peace, even when it makes you uncomfortable and afraid, because that's not how you used to do it before. Before you pulled out your love card, which was, that's making me feel uneasy in our relationship, and if
love doesn't do that.
And if I let you do that, then we're not really being loving, because then I'm not having you obey me, obey.
You're not letting me control you.
And then I rush back into my old fear, which is get her to obey, and now you'll be safe. Love is safe, but if you make them obey, then it's only safe if they obey.
Yes.
Even God knows if they don't obey, it's not safe. Now you got to keep it safe, and you only get it safe by them obeying. If they get out of line, then just burn them for a while, and don't worry about it.
And that's what we do in our relationships, It's like, we're like, well, if you loved me, then you wouldn't do da-da-da-da-da-da. If you loved me,
it's our way of saying obey me.
Exactly, that's our way of saying that love is something that happens when you obey me, or you let me control you with guilt.
Right.
And if you let me control you with guilt, then that means you love me, and so we can stay together for another year.
So at first, in our relationship, the honest truth of our relationship, that we can now laugh at, is when we first were doing this, we thought we were spiritual giants.
We thought we knew the real meaning of love. I love Greg. I'm in love with. I've never loved anyone like that before. We literally thought that we knew the real meaning of love.
And what happened is as I would try to get my Anna obey me card out, for our love part of our relationship, then because of A Course in Miracles, and I had somebody now walking beside me, as before I did on my own, thinking I knew what love was, and now I knew the author of love is walking with me, and is going to teach me a thing or two about love. And what happened was, at the beginning, I would say, yes, I'm willing to follow you. And then when it came down to the rubber meeting the road, as they say, where the traction really is, then I'd revert back into fear as Anna goes running off, freely doing what she wants to do without me controlling her with my obeyness of stuff, to demonstrate our love. And I stopped doing that and controlling and to dictating and to manipulating and to guilting, because the Course told me not to do these things. And it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, how's that going to keep me safe if I don't give her some good old-fashioned guilt? And then all of a sudden, not only does your relationship start becoming safer than you've ever experienced before, but you see your partner blossoming. Thank you. And yourself. Because as you're giving that to them, they start realizing, as you begin to realize, wow, why would I want to leave this person?
Exactly.
This person lets me be me.
Exactly.
And just lets me be me.
And then now wants to fulfill whatever it was that you wanted to experience, that you thought you had to control them with fear and guilt with. Punishment. Now you're not, you weren't giving me fear or guilt trying to control me, and now I wanted to do exactly what, you were hoping to experience. I'm confirming, what you were wanting to experience that you thought you had to control with guilt and fear with, and now I'm giving it to you, and it's my idea.
And I know this sounds really bizarre, and this is going to be hard to understand, but just trust me on this. When you start being allowed to be yourself, you become happy. I know that sounds really weird, but
And loving.
when you get to actually become yourself, whatever you
Yes.
truly seek to be and desire to do, without somebody giving you, shit, crap, guilt, judgment, condemnation, control, obey stuff, all of that tactics, and lets you become yourself. When you really step into your selfness, who you are as yourself, and start coming alive in that, you just naturally become happier and happier.
And loving and
that's
generous.
Our retreat from the illusional world into reality, because reality is finally you are moving toward joy and happiness, or moving toward heaven, or moving toward love, or
the
heaven,
real meaning
or
of
heaven
love
on earth, or as the Course in Miracles calls it, the happy dream. That's the next stage from as we're awakening. We're not fully awake yet. We're still in the dream world, but at least we're in what? A world of happiness. And that's I can see it more and more in our relationship and in our lives. That's truly what's manifesting.
Or AKA a fulfilling, happy, abundant, safe, joyous relationship. We were talking about heaven.
Yeah.
Well, of Course in Miracles says the closest approximation to heaven here is a relationship in which you feel safe to be yourself. And so the joy and the appreciation and the abundance and the fun only increases, and so that is, and the holy relationship, it says, literally is the portal. The ark of peace is entered 2 by 2, but with those two goes with them another world.
I was thinking of that.
And so, we're talking about heaven. Don't forget, heaven is entered through a relationship where instead of doing the old ideas about love is when you obey me. Love is when you let me control you with guilt. Love is when you do what I want you to do. Love is when you don't trigger me anymore. And you go, honey, let's learn what love really means, and let's both at least agree that love is not what we learned it was, or else it would have made us blissfully happy. And so let's join in learning what love really means according to God, the author of love. And so we don't have to make it. All we have to do is join in our willingness to walk toward that goal, to the real meaning, and then it is revealed to us, and then our fear of love decreases, and then that is Greg's and my fear of love has decreased and decreased. It's not totally gone, but our fear of love has tremendously decreased, and our life is getting happier, more fun, more fulfilling, and having nothing to do with us trying to control each other with fear and guilt. And so, and what does he say? In this, it says, in your holy relationship with the goal of learning the real meaning of love, is this world's light.
Is this world's happiness.
Is this world's happiness. A holy relationship is the light of the world. And what that means is that when this is your goal for a relationship, whether it's a relationship with your child, a relationship with your boss, a relationship with a family member, a relationship with a colleague, a coworker, it doesn't matter. Relationship with your higher self. When you have formed a relationship, when you've joined with another, whoever that may be, with that goal of learning the real meaning of love, not the old meaning of love, fear must disappear before you now.
Unhappiness must disappear before you now.
Pain and suffering and lack must disappear before you now.
Imagine the boss at work, and the boss at work is making you unhappy. Maybe it's the way they talk to you. And consider, rather than your two choices of complaining to a coworker about, them, in other words, you wish you could get your boss to change, obey you, you know, treat you the way you want them to treat you. Imagine rather than you do that, try to change the boss, or by, which would be the equivalent of talking about them behind their back or whatever. You're demonstrating your desire of what love is you want them to be controlled by you.
Right.
And you're thinking, well, they need to be if you saw the way they acted. But just imagine, no matter how frustrating that relationship, how tiring it is, that you just for an instant try it different and try to do what love does. See, we're in this crazy, insane, delusional dream because love is not controlling us. That's how we got here, is by what is called free will. We freely chose to be where we're at, and love freely chose not to control us, because that's what love does. Love isn't trying to get us to obey it. And now we're in this sleepy dream world where we think, oh my goodness, love, I don't want to come to love because then I'll have to obey. That doesn't sound fun. That sounds frightful. What if I don't obey right? What if I obey wrong? What if I get it wrong? You know, then what happens? Well, then you get, of course, punished. It's the way the system works. It has an order from beginning to end. Once you buy into the beginning of the system, that's how the system rolls.
Yeah.
But this whole new way is love. What I was hearing as Anna was just talking is love wants to, desires to. You could say God wants to, desire, or better, you could say Creator wants and desires to be experienced. Desires to be experienced with its own creation. Creator wants to be experienced by us, Creator's creation. Wants us to experience our Creator. But the way that Creator set it up, through the law of love and its own self-beingness, is through joining. And so I have to join with another and learn what love is, because I have forgotten what love is.
Don't know the meaning of love.
I don't know the meaning.
Didn't learn it.
Once I recognize where I'm at, then I'm being told the way out. The way out is to join. Join another in this concept of because I can only receive back what I give, so I have to find somebody to play this game with. Okay, I'm going to use the universal laws of as I give, I'm going to receive back. I'm going to give you who you are without trying to control you to be somebody who I want you to be.
Freedom.
And then as I do that, I'm going to receive back from heaven the universal law of being able to have the freedom to be me without condemnation, judgment, criticism, and punishment, and fear, and guilt, and all and shame, and abandonment, and all that. I'm just going to be allowed to have the same freedom. And wow, oh boy, that feels good. And it feels so good, and I still don't understand it, but I'm going to give more of it. More of it, not just to Anna, but to other people.
Yes, freedom.
And to other people. And I'm doing it because of its effects, because of its results. As Anna and I say, not braggingly, other than to brag on the course and to thank the one that made our life the way it is from the beginning, is we often say, I love my life. I'm happy to say that. I love my life. Yes, there are still days where I trip, where I fall. Just like all of us, I retreat into darkness. And the Course said, hey, you're going to do that.
That's all right.
That's all right. I'm still there next to you. No, you know, I haven't left you just because you decided to go back to your old belief system. No, once you called me in with you, I join hands with you, and I stand with you. And so do all your mighty companions.
Exactly. And so don't let your ego tell you, well, I'm not with a partner who da-da-da-da-da. You are.
Yeah,
you just, they're invisible.
Right.
You know, and
they come bringing many.
Exactly.
Everything.
Exactly.
Everyone.
All right, guys. Well, there you go. We will start back up next this coming Sunday on paragraph 5.
And thanks for staying late with us. We know we kept up some of you
up a little late.
You know,
That's right. We love you guys. I love.
I love
Bridget
that
says,
comment.
"Oh, I love you are triggering me." LOL. That's great.
And I love
Yay for triggering. All
Jimmy's
right.
comment, no fake ass relationships, which I used to say to you
Yes,
as my
exactly.
biggest reason.
That's why she's
Yeah.
quoting you.
Thank you.
And she goes, Anna being fairy free freaked Greg out. So funny. Hi, Carolina. That's awesome. Yes, exactly. So we hope this has been helpful. We're trying to be authentic in the application of these ideas to our own relationship, and we hope that's inspiring and helpful for you too, that it can be done. So, because that's what this is about. This is about using A Course in Miracles on our relationships so that it's practical and we can use it. We need to see how we can use these ideas now. They're not big, lofty ideas that, are not practical. These are practical ideas about different ways that you can be in a relationship, a different goal for a relationship that makes your relationship something that is truly new and different, meaning completely different from any relationship you've experienced in the past. And this is the way to have that. Okay?
Amen.
Practical. All right. Love you guys. Thanks for joining us. Good job, baby. Love you guys.
Love you
See you
guys.
soon.